right, so I just popped in here and I said, let me do this podcast because this is really exciting news. Welcome to another episode of Ride Unbridled. This is the podcast where we merge wellness and impact. This is where you find out what your purpose is through wellness. Funny enough, we never do that. That it is more, or it is beyond our tank tops and our bikinis and our tight jeans, all right? So, did you know that 30 to 50% of those who start a fitness journey quit before 6 months? I mean, well before 6 months. But I wanted to bring that statistic to you, and my job is to give you the tools where you can sustain an exercise program, or where you can sustain good health habits. And that is what this is about today. So if you are someone who you've started a fitness journey over and over and over again and can't seem to sustain, this is the podcast for you. If you know of someone who seem to be having that kind of trouble as well, share this with them, send it to them, and let them know that over the next few weeks, we are going to learn the secret to sustainable health habits. I am so extremely excited. I heard Jay Shetty say that the way to change begins with 3 R's. That's reason, research, and repetition. This is the research, all right? You have to have your reason as to why, and we'll talk about that as well, because that's all a part of the research. And so this week, let me just start out with my story. My story begins on the banana boat from Jamaica coming to America. My story begins with coming to America. So I came to America at about 14 years old. And when I came to school is vast. There's a huge difference between the American education system and the Jamaican education system. And I'll go into that some other time. However, when I got here, I couldn't speak a lick of English. I'm just kidding. Jamaicans speak English. But I spoke with an accent. And as a result of that, I got teased, or I got singled out, different things like that. And different ones were like, well, why do you talk like that? Or, it was just crazy. I thought American kids were just nuts. However, unlike other trainers who come into a progression of, I did sports in school, I ran track, I did basketball, I did pee-wee, this and that. I've been working out since I was a fetus, and then it was a natural progression. I started training people. That's not my story. That's not my story. You want to hear my story? My story is I flunked gym, if you really want to know. I flunked gym. As far as my gym classes, I never showed up. I hated going into the locker room. I was already ostracized for being a foreigner. I was already ostracized for being a foreigner. And as a result of that, I never wanted to be in gym with those girls. It's like, I'm not going, and I'm not taking my clothes off in front of them, So I never went to gym. Anyway, so I flunked gym. At some point I scathed through. Then I went through a period of my life where I pretty much got fat, really fat. And I was an inconsistent human being. I was inconsistent in everything that I did. There was nothing that I stuck with. I would start it and then I would stop. And then I would start and then I would stop. And then one day in prayer, I asked God, I said, could you just please help me to be consistent in one thing? That was my big prayer. I want to be consistent in just one thing. And I decided that I was going to be consistent. It was a decision, but then there were some other things that came along with the decision, and then I learned how to do it better, and I want to pass it on to you. Because when I started exercising, I wasn't really asking to be consistent in exercise per se. That was just what I chose. And so when I decided and I started to exercise, I never stopped. And I want to give you some tips in learning how to achieve your fitness goals, how to maintain and sustain your fitness goals in order to step into your calling, in order to function better in what it is that you're called to do. There's a scripture that says, young men, I call on you because you're strong. Then the Proverbs 31 woman, that she girds her loins and she strengthens her arms. You know, whether it's figuratively or as an analogy, it doesn't matter. She strengthened her arms. So today I am going to start from the beginning. I want to help you to understand, and I say that a lot. I want to help you understand. I do. That the only reason why you are not set up for sustainability is because you don't have the knowledge. You don't understand why you're not motivated, or you may have time constraints and you don't know how to get around those. I'm going to teach you. You may be in a situation where you just don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to get into a program. I'm going to teach you how there's never a good time, but it's always the best time. I'm going to teach you the fact that you have not yet begun a habit until it's hard to do the habit, until it is impossible to do the habit. That's when your habit begins. That's when your training begins. That's when your sustainability begins. So I am so looking forward to passing on this information for you, and you will be at a point in your life where you're wondering, oh my gosh, how come I'm just doing this? I'm just doing it. And pass this knowledge on to someone else so they can step into their calling with strength, with vigor, inspiration, energy, and they can pass it on. You won't be the person sitting in the corner going, oh my God, another year and I'm not doing anything. You'll be so proud of the fact that you can scratch that off of your New Year's resolution. So I am looking forward to sharing it with you. The first thing I'm going to share is why we exercise. And so somebody might say, well, I know why we exercise. We want to get in shape and we want to do this and want. No. I want to talk about the physiological reason. Listen, my objective here is so that you will know everything I know. If you know what I know, you can't unknow it, and you will crush your goals. Those are the facts. You will crush your goals. But let's start with a mind-blowing piece of information like this. Why do we exercise? Why do we exercise? Because I want to tone my butt. I get all kinds of answers, but the reason, and the only reason you exercise, is to increase oxygen intake. Boom! That is the key to our health. Oxygen intake. When the cells are filled with oxygen, the cells can't be filled with virus and bacteria. Okay, and I can't say bacteria because there are good bacteria and then there are bacteria that don't serve us. However, when we have oxygen intake, it is part of the definition of fitness. Fitness, practical definition, as in being well equipped and preparing your vessel for what you have been assigned to do. That is one thing. However, the physiological definition is how well you take in, transport, and utilize oxygen. How well do you take in, transport, and utilize oxygen? Can you take in, transport, and utilize oxygen efficiently? That's the key. Can we do that efficiently? When we're doing CPR on someone, we can pump blood as much as we want. Unless we add breaths or oxygen, we are back to square one. That is what you need to know. Unless we add oxygen, we are back to square one. Oxygen controls everything. Well, let me say it is the catalyst, meaning it's the beginning of everything. In the beginning, God blew into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Here's what I want you to do today. I want you to pay attention to your breathing. Do you understand that when you breathe shallow breaths, that your body becomes a little bit more stressed? You need to breathe deeply. Our bodies so need oxygen. Oxygen travels by way of blood, all right, to give our bodies life and energy. When you go to the hospital and they take your pulse ox, like from your finger. Did I just do that? I just did that. Unbelievable. When they take your pulse ox on your finger and your oxygen is low, you will notice that your energy is also very low. This is just the beginning. The reason we exercise, square one, bottom line, is we want to fill our bodies with oxygen. Let that soak for a minute. And I cannot wait until next week when we begin to talk about how easy, when I give you the easiest starting point that you could ever have in exercise. You will begin and you will be shocked that you began. But my job at this point is to get you to begin. So if you know anyone who is trying to begin an exercise program, you feel like they're just never going to stick with it, I want you to share this with them. And I cannot wait to see you next week. And remember, I'm rooting for you. And I mean it. Talk to you soon.